Hi everybody, my name is Amanda and I recently took the NCLEX and passed it in 75 questions, so I wanted to share how I did that and more information that's pretty straightforward about the test. So number one, on this test, as you probably already know, there's a 75 questions minimum, and the max right now with COVID is 145 questions. Usually it's 265. So right now you have to prepare to take 145 questions maximum. My advice is do not prepare yourself to take just 75 questions. Don't keep telling yourself, oh, I just want to take those 75. Stop praying and hoping just to take the 75. Before I went in for my test, I had to mentally tell myself and prepare myself for taking the 145 questions. So that way, when it went over 75, that I wasn't, scared or shocked. When it goes over the 75, then their confidence, just goes down, and then you do worse on the test. So kind of tell yourself that you're going to take the full exam. All right, so the next thing is, what does the exam look like? Because there's not really pictures on the internet of what it looks like. It mostly resembles Uworld, the color scheme and kind of the layout, but there's a big difference. It doesn't come with a strikeout feature. It doesn't come with the highlight feature. It's important that you find ways that you can use those tools for yourself. When you go into the test, you get a dry erase board. And with that dry erase board, I made sure that I would write each of the questions down, like each of the answers, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I would strike out on the dry erase which ones that I knew were wrong. And this really helped me eliminate those answers that I wasn't sure about either. So I really recommend doing that. It's a great tool to use during the test since you don't have that strikeout feature. All right, and so when you get there, they're going to be offering you that dry erase board. They're also going to say, there's earplugs you can take, there's headphones, noise canceling headphones you can take. I took both of them. I get kind of distracted from the sound of a pencil or from the sound of, anything clicking. So I made sure that I wore both the earplugs and the headphones. So everything was just kind of quiet and calm and I could focus. Next thing, take your breaks. This is huge. So you get a break at the 2.5 and 3.5 hour mark. I took my break at the 2.5 hour because I am a very slow test taker. I'm very slow. It took me over 2 hours to do 75 questions, but that's because I wanted to carefully read them and make sure I'm making the best decision and not hastily going through the answers just to get done with the test. I recommend when I took my break at the 2.5 hour mark, I first got up, I got a sip of my drink, I went to the bathroom, I washed my face with cold water. I had to give myself a pep talk just to kind of get myself, ready for finishing this test. So I really recommend using those breaks, even though you want to kind of go through it and quickly get over with it. This will help your brain kind of reset so you can finish those questions strong. Day before the exam, what did I do? The day before the NCLEX, I made sure to not do any studying, which I know you're like, wait, why would you not do that? You got to cram some information. Don't do that. You'll overwhelm yourself. You'll get more stress. It's not worth it. So I recommend, going for a long walk or making a yummy lunch or playing a game or I don't know, whatever makes you happy and kind of de-stresses you. At night, I watched my first episode ever of The Bachelor, and I love it. I got into it. I joined the Bachelor fan. I never thought I would, but it's in some ways very It's very entertaining. So I watched that the night before my NCLEX, and I made sure too that I would have a dinner that was some foods actually do help, at least me, relieve stress. So I made sure to have a salad. I had an apple. I don't know why when I eat an apple I just feel less stressed, and I had a lot of water, and I went to bed early. That's a huge thing. You want to get a good amount of sleep the night before the NCLEX. I scheduled my NCLEX at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I know some of you are like, oh my gosh, that's so early. But that is when you are the most fresh. When you wake up throughout the day, you start kind of winding down, and you know, you're not as focused. So I recommend, if you can schedule it as early as possible in the morning, do that. So in the morning, I've started a tradition that whenever I have a giant test, like a midterm or a final, or I'm, you know, doing a huge clinical or something, or the NCLEX, I go to Starbucks. I don't know why, but it's something that really makes me happy. I recommend you guys not getting something super high in sugar or something with so much caffeine, because one, that's going to make your anxiety go through the roof, and two, you know, the NCLEX is not a sprint, it's a marathon. So you want to make sure that you eat foods and drink things that are not going to make you super buzzed at first and then kind of go downhill. So the meat and potatoes, how I studied. I first scheduled my NCLEX and was ready to start studying. I was like, I have no idea where to begin. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. So I have two things that I highly recommend. One, this is the most important thing, is finding Mark Klimek's NCLEX review audio. Okay, I found these on YouTube. They were more helpful than anything else. So here are the audio lectures that I would listen to from Mark Klimek. Was by this person, Latasha Evans, but I think that they usually delete after a couple weeks, so just make sure to just type in Mark Klimek to see if you can find. This was my favorite lecture that I listened to maybe 3 times, and it's so helpful. It helps summarize, you know, the important stuff, and it helps you try to answer questions. It's a wonderful review. I highly recommend it. And I know many people that have also listened to his review did really well on the NCLEX. The other thing I invested in was Uworld. I do like Uworld. I think that the layout and design of Uworld is very similar to the actual NCLEX. So if you have high anxiety like me, that kind of was a stress reliever when I got there, and it kind of looks similar. So I really like that. Questions were really great. But the one thing I didn't like is my confidence level when I first started. I got 38%, and compared to like the average, which was 50 or 60, whatever it was. And you know, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know much. But I think they're a great review. So what I advise is, don't look at your score. Like, who cares about your score? Just focus on reading those rationales and kind of, you know, taking notes. I would take notes of the things that I did not know, so I would review them later. I did about 1,000 questions on Uworld at least, and you know, on average I probably got like 50 to 60%, which is not that great. But you know what, honestly, I am not trying to compare myself to others. I was trying to focus on my own abilities. So I think those questions are much harder. So don't take your score to heart. If you get 50 to 60% on questions, that's awesome. That's really amazing. If you get higher than that, great. But I know a lot of people that would get 70, 80% on Uworld and fail the NCLEX. And then I know people that got 40% average on Uworld and passed in 75 questions. So, you know, take that advice and kind of focus not just on your score, but on learning. I made sure to not do more than like 3 to 4 hours of studying a day. So I do like an hour of studying in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, and maybe an hour or 2 in the night, because you don't want to fry your brain and overwhelm yourself. So this is what my exact planner looked like. So I would write down, 100 questions and write like Mark Klimek's audio lectures, and then I'd also probably have like the Quizlet. I would write that for every single day until the Nclex, and I would just check it off when I'm finished. So another thing I did is that I made a Quizlet of the top Nclex medications that they usually test on, like drug toxicity levels and just more common drugs. So I would study this for about 5 to 10 minutes a day, not much time at all, just quickly going through them so I knew an overview, because pharmacology, there is just so many medications, so many classes. And so I think it's just important to focus on the ones that other people are going to know and that are going to be tested on, because they're not going to ask you some weird random medications that nobody's heard of. They're going to want to ask you questions that they think every nurse should know. Okay, after the NCLEX, I was 100% sure that I failed. Called a lot of my nursing school friends, and one of them told me about this trick, and she said, I've read that it works 90% of the time, and all these other people have done it and it worked. After you take your NCLEX, wait a couple hours and go back into the Pearson, where you're going to register for the NCLEX, and you want to go through the steps, everything. And if you go down to the point where you're paying for billing and it says that you cannot schedule this test, that means you passed. And I was like, I don't know. And the next day too, I checked my state's Department of Health and it showed that my test passed. So I never actually paid for the early results, because you can check your individual state's Department of Health and they will show if you passed your exam or not. Most people come out feeling like they totally failed, even though, sometimes they put distractor questions in there. In the NCLEX, if you do 75 questions minimum, 15 of those questions are ones that they don't even use. I was so sure that I failed because honestly, I felt like there was 10 questions where I was 100% sure that I knew. But then, there was all these other ones that I was like, I'm taking an educated guess, like just hoping that they'll be right. This NCLEX is a test of safety. Okay, so it's making sure that you are safe to practice, that you are not going to hurt your patient. You want to make sure that like the drug toxicity levels. You want to make sure you know the proper PPE to wear. You want to make sure you know how to do proper medication administration. And if you've done well at clinicals and you've made it through nursing school and you're to this point where you're going to take the NCLEX, I think that already kind of means you are a safe nurse, because you made it through to that point. So you got to have some confidence in yourself that you can do this test. Show them what you showed your clinical instructors, that you are going to be a good nurse, you are going to be safe in practice. You got to remember that you made it this far and that you are going to make it through this test. Some people do have to retake it several times, and there's no shame in that. If anything, if you keep taking the test and do not give up, I have more respect for you than anything else, because that means that you are not giving up on your dream, and that shows a lot about your character. Guys, stay tuned, because I'm going to start my own little review series, and it's going to be fun. It's going to have a lot of information. It's going to be simple and to the point, and I think that's what we need. We need some structure, but that's, easy to follow along with. So I hope this helped you guys. If you have any more questions, please let me know. I wish you guys the best of luck. Bye. 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 Bye.